he is a big key. When they need to get a pass rush, he's their best pass rusher for sure.
Best rookie?
Mike Hughes was really impressive to me. He's not going to take away the starting job of Xavier Rhodes. He's not going to take away Trey Waynes as long as Waynes still continues to perform well and improve. But I do think Hughes has a really good shot to at least make Mackenzie Alexander nervous, if not unseat him. He's just really quick. He's also could be the guy. Everybody talks about it every year. Marcus Sherrills, is he on the bubble? Well, I think he's really on the bubble every year, but he's always just been so good that you want him there. But if Hughes can catch punts with confidence, I think he could turn into their punt returner. I do think he will be their kickoff return man, and I do think that he's got a better than average shot to take over that nickel role. His quickness and recovery, and he looks like he knows what he's doing. Like, he can anticipate things. He can pass off receivers when they're in zone and make a break on an outside route that's not even his guy, just because he's kind of diagnosing what's going on. So, Mike Zimmer is not a guy to give out praise easily. And when he says that Mike Hughes has picked up the defense faster than any cornerback he's had, that tells me a lot, and it shows on the field so far.
Really interesting if the pick they made that kind of confused everybody in draft ends up looking really good as early as September.
Well, and here's the thing. I mean, you don't know how long Trey Waynes is going to be around. He is not into his veteran contract yet. And so you play Hughes in the nickel this year, and, maybe next year or the following year, all of a sudden, he's a replacement on the outside for Trey Waynes. He's not the biggest guy. He's 5'10", so it's not that prototypical 6 foot, 6'1", 6'2" guy on the outside. But I think he's got enough athleticism to make up for that. The speed is certainly there. The jumping ability is there, and it looks like he's fairly good at anticipating things. So I think he's on track for a good rookie season.
We'll do best undrafted rookie next after we thank Tony Hoaglund, Hoaglund, your State Farm agent in Champlin. As I always say, you can work with Tony no matter where you live. Between the app, his staff's responsiveness, Tony's responsiveness, he's very easy to work with, and he will get you a good price as well. But for me, I haven't had many accidents in my life, but the rare times I have had accidents, what you're worried about at that moment, you want service. You want somebody who's going to take care of you immediately, and I know you get that with Tony.
Hey, Minnesota sports fans. This is your local State Farm agent, Tony Hoaglund. I need you all to ask yourselves this question. If you're in an at-fault car accident and you are sued for $700,000, how much of that $700,000 will my current insurance company pay? If you are unsure or can't answer all $700,000, you need to give us a call. State Farm has been number one in car insurance since World War II and number one in homeowners insurance since 1964. For a no-obligation review of your current policies, call us at 763-421-4900 or check out our website at www.champlininsurance.com.
All right, best undrafted rookie.
This is a guy that people are going to go, oh, is this the next Adam Thielen? And Adam Thielen kind of pushes that aside and says, let everybody be their own person. But Brandon Zylstra, Minnesota guy, grew up kind of in the area that Adam Thielen grew up in, played for a small college. He when I talked to him after minicamp, he was not afraid to throw out the Adam Thielen comparison and said, I talked to him a lot about what it takes to make it from being an undrafted guy to a guy that actually makes the team, Thielen was practice squad, and then he was a lot of special teams guy for a while before he finally burst onto the scene as a receiver. Zylstra was pretty impressive in kind of the acrobatic catches, the diving, the sideline catches, all of that. And, the funny part is, it was probably the second week of OTAs I asked, somebody on the Vikings, who are some of the guys I should pay attention to? And Zylstra was a guy he mentioned, and it kind of surprised me because I thought, I'm talking mostly about draft picks, like guys that are going to make the team. And he's like, no, I think he's got a chance. So he does have, I would say, close to Thielen size, and I think he's more developed than a lot of rookie receivers, just the body, the muscular aspect of it. So I think he's not necessarily got a shot at the 53-man, but I think he's got a really good shot at the practice squad, and you just develop him. And coming from a D3 school, I mean, talking to him, he's like, yeah, the playbook is really the main thing for me because it's just so much bigger, and, you know, just reading routes as they progress, which way should I break, is not something that he was used to doing. So all of that will take some time, but from an athletic standpoint, I really like what he brings.
How about on defense?
Well, Holton Hill's a guy that, you know, I'd mentioned, I think, shortly after they signed him as an undrafted free agent. Kind of a guy that was expected to be maybe a 4th or 5th round pick talent-wise, but because of so many off-the-field problems and issues, people didn't want to take a chance on him as a draft pick. The Vikings ended up giving him a pretty healthy signing bonus as an undrafted guy, and you know, it's just a matter of, you know, if you remember when Dalvin Cook was drafted, there was a lot of talk about, oh, you know, he's hanging with the wrong crowd. He's got to get away from that. And there are a lot of players that are like that coming out of college. I think Holton Hill's that same sort where maybe you get him away from a bad influence and get him around guys that have been here for a while. I mean, you get Terrence Newman as the ultimate veteran mentor. You get Xavier Rhodes, who I think has really found out what it's like in the NFL, the work ethic that goes into it, just taking care of your body. So if Holton Hill is willing to listen to all the advice and, you know, kind of absorb just the actions and not just the words of other players around him, I think he's got a good shot to be a contributor in a couple of years. I think right now the athletic skills are there. If he has the work ethic, if he has the maturity to stay out of trouble, I think he could be a real contributor in, say, 2 years.
There was a time, Tim, when if you wanted to, you know, put a player around good influences, you would keep them away from the Minnesota Vikings.
That's very true. How things have changed.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, at one point they were either leading the league or very close to leading the league for arrests over
and DUIs,
you know, a 5-year or 10-year period. You know, Bengals, I think, were among them, which is interesting since Zimmer came from there. But they've really turned it around, and I don't. And initially, I think part of it was they tried to stay away from bringing those type of players in, and I feel like they're more emboldened recently, maybe because they have the veteran influence around and they haven't been burned by players very much recently. So, you know, we'll see. It's always a risk when that happens, but if you really believe that the guy can change with good influences around him, it's worth a shot.
Absolutely. Biggest question heading forward?
It's basically the same thing. Yeah, I mean, it's, 2-3 years now we've been saying offensive line. What's going to happen with the offensive line? It's the same thing this year. If I had to guess right now, I kind of am leaning toward it's going to be Rashad Hill at right tackle, Mike Remmers at right guard, Elflein comes back and takes over at center, coming off of his injury, and Nick Easton's left guard, Riley Reif left tackle. Which, if you would have asked me a month ago, I wouldn't have thought that. But they were with that combination so much on the right side of the line. Elflein wasn't back to really affect what's going to happen at center and left guard. It was just Remmers in at right guard so much, and I expected him to be, you know, kind of alternating right guard, right tackle, try to figure it out who else would play right guard then. It just looks like it's going to be Remmers and Rashad Hill on the right side.
Interesting. Funniest or most perplexing moment of camp?
So I think it might have been the last day or second to last day of mini camp. Vikings are going through some goal line work, offense against defense, and they're trying to put, Zimmer's trying to put the team in situational things where, you know, the offense has to think and look at what the defense is doing. So all of a sudden, you know, after they're up at the line, Zimmer calls a timeout. And Sheldon Richardson basically just throws up his hands and is like, what? Why? And I'm thinking, here's he's a veteran, but he's a new player on this team. Why are you complaining? And what what I came away from after Zimmer had answered the question and kind of thinking about it, here's what I think happened. So the offense comes to the line. The defense doesn't like the call they're in. They make a switch in their defense, and Zimmer didn't want that switch to take place because I think in a game situation he would have. But I think he wanted the offense to face that specific defense. And Richardson being new to it, I don't think he understood that, they do things differently at this point in the offseason than they would during the season. So all of it kind of makes sense after you find out that information. But I just thought it was funny and a little risky for a new guy to be like throwing up his hands and acting like, what are we doing?
Yeah. So where's Sheldon going to play this year?
With the Vikings.
Okay.
Yeah, they need him, and I think he's going to be really good.
Yeah. Best competitions of the camp.
Well, the guard competition, I think, will be one. Well, really the right side of the offensive line. If they want Remmers out at right tackle, that opens up a big competition at guard. Kind of curious to see once Pat Elflein comes back, does he automatically assume the center position, or because Nick Easton has been doing it throughout, the 4 weeks of really full team practices that they've had with Kirk Cousins, do they feel more comfortable with Easton there? I think it'll probably be Elflein back at center just because he's been so good there last year. The other competition is kicker. And, so Daniel Carlson had his worst day, at least worst day in front of the media, the second to last day of minicamp, where he missed 2 out of 4 kicks. And one of them, I think, was from 35 yards. So you can't really say, it was distance or anything like that. All that said, when Mike Prefer, the special teams coordinator, talked about it, it sounded like overall, not just when the media was there, but overall that Carlson had a little better camp than Kai Forbath. And Prefer wasn't willing to really answer a question about when do you make the decision. Is it better to make the decision at the start of training camp so Carlson gets all these extra reps, or is it better to just have him battle it out throughout the preseason and then make that call in the final cuts? I tend to lean toward, if you have enough confidence in Carlson, just move forward with him and give him more kicks. But they may also want to have the pressure on him and see how he performs.
Right. We like making decisions this time of the year. They don't have any reason to make a decision this time of the year.
Yep.
Vikings PR staff wins the Roselle Award. I want to make sure I phrase it correctly.
Yep. From the Pro Football Writers of America, every year vote on a number of different awards. And so the Vikings PR staff, for the first time in their history, won the Roselle Award. And I will say this, I think they have done a good job over the past 5 years, but I think they've really increased that effort to work with the media, work with the players. There was a time where it was really contentious between, and this is, in the 90s I'm talking about, the relationships were pretty contentious between the media and the players. It's not that way anymore. And I think the PR staff deserves a lot of credit for that. And I think that it reflects better on the players when they're more willing to not only talk to the media, but also get out in the public and do charity work and all of that sort of stuff. So, I think the PR staff deserves a congratulations and a pat on the back for the Roselle Award.
And you and I have been working with, guys like Bob Hagan and Tom West for a long time. John Ekstrom, Sam Newt brought in a lot of cool people who are really nice to be around. They have a good, deep staff, very reasonable people to deal with, very accommodating. For any reasonable request, you feel like you're dealing with real human beings, and there are places in this town and across the country where you feel like you're dealing with CIA.
Yeah. And all the way from Jeff Anderson, Bob Hagan.
I'm sorry, I should have mentioned Jeff too. Yes.
And all the way down, their interns that they've had the past several years have been really good too. Yeah. And a lot of them have gone on to, whether it's NFL Network or other teams in the NFL and gotten full-time jobs. So, they've done a good job of hiring really competent and helpful interns as well. Right.
And Jeff has kind of moved more toward the corporate communications side. But he's still very helpful when you need him to be. They get it. And there are a lot of people in their industry who just think it's their job to put up a wall and keep their people behind it.
And you know what? It makes everybody more miserable. It makes
It does.
them more miserable because the media is miserable. And
well, it also